Hello, folks. It's Max, the indie anchor, again here with another episode. Today, I decided to try something a little different. I've been struggling trying to find my feel of this channel, a real vibe for it. So I'm going to take it into a wrestling review show. And today, we're going to review Championship Wrestling from Atlanta, episode 10, which aired today, November 21st, 2021. Championship Wrestling from Atlanta is part of the United Wrestling Network, which encompasses Championship Wrestling from Memphis, Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, Championship Wrestling from Arizona, Gulf Coast, etc. Ran primarily by Dave Marquez. It's kind of like a set of territories that weave into one whole company. But today, like I said, we'll be focusing on Atlanta episode 10. And today's episode started out with a promo from Effie on Alan Angel of the Dark Order from AEW. So as you can see, the Forbidden Door applies here. Effie being from Fest Wrestling and Alan Angel being AEW. They're coming together in Atlanta to promote a match for Atlanta. Now that will be the main event on episode 11 next week, but the promo overall from Effie was really good, really solid. It established, their past history in Georgia area, and how roads had diverged. He even mentioned Robert Frost in the promo, which, being a Robert Frost fan, that kind of gave me a little bit of a kick. He also poked the bear that we will call Jim Cornette, because he referred to his outlaw mud show career, and as we all know, that's Jim Cornette's favorite expression for independent wrestling that, has a hardcore edge. Jim's not very big on breaking out the furniture, as he says. Well, at least without a reason. If it's a cap-off match, Jim's like, okay, maybe, possibly, but if you're just being hardcore for the sake of for being hardcore, Jim not a huge fan. Overall, it was a backstage interview. Good. It did its job. It established what needed to be established, and we'll be looking forward to that main event next week. And I'll probably be covering episode 11. I'm going to be looking to do Championship Wrestling from Atlanta every week, because it airs on a Sunday, and it's just one of the most convenient. I'm also debating on covering DCW every week, Devotion Championship Wrestling, and you'll see why as we get further into the episode, but just keep that in mind. So the first match that we actually get is Gustavo, who's actually the Rush Division champion from OVW, Al Snow's promotion, versus Alex Chamberlain, who I've only ever seen in Atlanta. So the match was good overall. Gustavo, like a lot of younger high flyers in the independent scene, his high flying doesn't look as polished as what you would see in WWE or AEW, but it has the potential to. He's overall a good wrestler. I like the gimmick. You just have to see him work, and I definitely encourage you to watch this match. But the odd thing was that he wasn't wearing the Rush Division Championship, even though it was mentioned, that he was the OVW, Rush Division Champion. So why would you mention that and him not come out with the title? I think that's kind of a flaw in the system here. Now, I don't know whether Al has some discrepancy against the title appearing on other programs, but if you're going to mention it, you might as well see it. Anyway, match was pretty on point. There were a couple highlight spots. The one being the just decapitating clothesline on Gustavo from Alex Chamberlain. It would have made JBL proud. Let's put it that way. It lasted a good quarter of the show, and ended with a a reversal maneuver. So Gustavo goes for a top rope crossbody. Alexander Chamberlain catches him, and he reverses it into a tombstone pile driver via, Undertaker style. 1, 2, 3, call it a fucking day. Gustavo's done. Alex Chamberlain, he's got this very Stone Cold-esque thing going on with him with the black tights, or trunks rather, as far as appearance. He looks like he'd kick your ass rather than talk to you as far as expression. His facials are pretty good. So overall, yet again, that was a pretty solid match. After that, we move into an interview. Dave Marquez, and he's got Mac with him, and Mac's asking for a title shot. We've only seen Mac once or twice in Atlanta, and I'm not even getting his full name here, but it wasn't mentioned in the interview. So if it's not mentioned in the interview, this is where you're kind of not doing a decent job of reapprising the fans of, this wrestler's full name, his history with the promotion, even though it's only 10 episodes. So I felt that there was something missing here because, to tell you the truth, I'm going to be honest, I don't remember his last match. I watched so much wrestling that it kind of fell to the wayside for me. So here's this guy who I think I know that's asking for a title shot, and they're telling me I should, think that he deserves it, but they're not giving me any highlight reels, nothing like that. So it just kind of fell flat for me. But with the consistency of me watching and reviewing the shows, maybe that'll change and we'll have a different perspective on this guy. Now after that, we come out for a tag team match with the Tate Twins versus the Rapture. Well, the Rapture comes out first, and then here comes the Tate Twins, but lo and behold, only one Tate arrives. For one reason, the other isn't there. He addresses it to the Rapture, and he says, "Oh, well, I'll just take you 2-on-1, blah, blah, blah." And, of course, that's not going to happen. Down to the ring comes one of my favorites, and the owner of DCW, which was why I was saying, later in the episode, you'll know why I'm thinking about referring or reviewing ECW or DCW every week. Manny Lemons. The man, the brand, the lemonade stand, just love the whole gimmick, love the occasional boas, the yellow and blue. Overall, he's a really great wrestler, and it was really good to see him come down and kind of take the place for the Tate Twins. But as you'll find out later in the evening, he's to eat the pin, so that technically the Tate Twins didn't get pinned, Manny Lemons gets pinned. So the Tate Twins as a unit are still undefeated in championship wrestling for Atlanta, which is important because they mentioned that 3-4 times. Oh, well, the Tate Twins are undefeated. The Tate Twins are undefeated. Pretty lackluster tag team match overall. And even the finish kind of just looked too contrived for me. The Rapture wins, obviously, and one of them gets Manny in a suplex position, and the other drop kicks him. But I was real confused because the camera angle where they drop kicked him in the head or the back, and it just looked real weak, and it didn't even look like it could pin a fly. I just wasn't a fan. It was poorly done. Was not a good showing for the Rapture. Though they have the psychology of dividing the ring, quick tags, isolating opponents, their impact factor is minimal. It just doesn't seem like that hurt. I'm not buying what they're putting down. And I know Manny and the Tate Twins, because I watch DCW and OVW all the time, are quite a lot better than this. So I really, as a fan, I'm putting this on the Rapture. And I try to give as much positive criticism as possible, but this just I couldn't get into it. And of course, there was another crossbody. In fact, one of as you see me looking over, I'm looking over at my notes, and what I put at the top of the show was too many crossbodies from the top rope. I saw like 3 or 4 of them during the night, and there were that many matches. So that was a little bit overutilized, and it should have only been done in the very first match where the crossbody led to the finish. Just my opinion. Take it, leave it, throw it in the garbage. Who am I anyway? I've got 12 fucking subscribers. But anyway, overall, Tate Twins versus Rapture, which ended up being single Tate Twin and Manny Lemmings versus Rapture, that just did not blow up my skirt. That was a bad match. So we get a backstage segment between Danny Jordan and the backstage interviewer Marty Bell. Danny's kind of a bitch to Marty, and then Ziggy Dice just comes out of nowhere and he says he's bought the airtime for now and he's going to go out and take over, and he takes Danny Jordan with him, and he corrects the announcer in saying that there's not going to be a match tonight. I bought this time. I'm just going to sit here and bullshit and be the ever-present heel for a couple minutes. And of course, somebody interrupts that thought process, and here comes Pedro Pablo. It doesn't get more Hispanic than that. 2 first names. And never seen this guy before in my life. And if I have, I've forgotten. So I instantaneously know, as a longtime wrestling fan, okay, he's going to lose, but how? Well, this thing took probably about 4 minutes longer than what it should have. Because what you're trying to do here is put over Ziggy Dice. You're trying to make him look like a legitimate threat and a dickbag. And they just spent too much time being competitive. Meanwhile, Danny Jordan's still in the back. And takes her like 5 minutes to get out there. Finally calls some sort of distraction. Meanwhile, we got another crossbody. Woo. Anyway. And so Danny comes out. She gets the distraction. And then you think that Pablo's going to be pinned, but he's not, because lo and behold, here comes Marty Bell down to beat the shit out of Danny. And, so starting these 2 women feuding, a supposed backstage announcer versus a legitimate wrestler. Now, we are supposed to know that, Marty Bell was a legitimate backstage, or a legitimate wrestler at one point, but right now she's in the backstage role, and, this feud was coming. Apparently she was probably on injury, and they just gave her this job for a little while so that when she came back, this angle could happen. But anyway, so second distraction, too convoluted, and Ziggy Dice gets the pin via a sky-high powerbomb. Shout out D'Lo Brown. And then that just set up... Really, this match was only there to put over Ziggy Dice and get that Danny Jordan, Marty Bell thing going. You could have done this in a lot less time, and the match would have turned out better. You just destroy Pedro Pablo, because who gives a rat's ass? This is his first appearance on Atlanta. Traditionally, you always lose your first outing unless they intend on doing something big with you. So, I just felt that this took too long to get to where it was going. But I get where it was going, so it was an okay match, just a little too long. And then, of course, we go back to the backstage again, and here's Heather Monroe cutting a promo on Reka Tahaka, which I love. Reka Tahaka, she's probably the best thing in all of wrestling in women's divisions. Samoan gimmick. Her husband is Manny Lemons in real life. A true power couple in wrestling. You pretty much see one where you see the other in a lot of instances. Now, her and Heather Monroe, the Killer Bay from Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, Hollywood's come to Atlanta to make an appearance. They are in a tiebreaker situation. One's won one match, one's won the other match. This is the tiebreaker, and Heather Monroe, they established the fact that she is the longest running woman in all of the United Wrestling Networks. And that's kind of her reason for wanting to get rid of this tie with Reka Tahaka, because she thinks that she's going to lose a measure of respect if the young Reka Tahaka comes in and, gets 2 solid wins over her. So I don't think that this was the cap to this feud, but I think that this is going to be what perpetuates it forward, and I'm looking forward to seeing where they go with this. Maybe a match where they bring in the furniture, a ladder match, maybe if we can consider like a women's cage match, because you're already talking that they're going to be the main event. So anyway, she cuts a pretty scathing promo, exit on that. Pretty good promo. But, Killer Bay never really does bad on the promos. And then we get an Alan Angel interview segment after that. So here's 2 interview segments essentially back to back. And this one was promoting the match next week with Effie. So Effie had his shit to say at the beginning of the show. Now Alan Angel's going to say his. I'll just say that Alan's wasn't as good as Effie's. That's really all that needs to be said about it. And then we move on to the main event of the evening, which is Reka Tahaka and Heather Monroe. So this was probably about a 10-12 minute match. Real solid. What you come to expect from women's matches is, technically speaking, very, very solid. The impact just isn't the same, because generally women weigh less, so when they hit the ring it doesn't make as great of a noise. So you, as a wrestling fan who's used to watching primarily male wrestle, you hear that, and with women's wrestling it sounds more like, it's just not as impactful. There's really no way to fix that, because the impact that's being made is your weight, your force, your speed, all this stuff. So that's one of those things you have to get past when you're watching women's wrestling most of the time. But very, 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 very solid match. Now, referring to my notes here, it was a hot start, meaning like they wasted no time. They got right into it. Just Reka came in running, just started clubbing the piss out of her, Mount MMA style. But the rest of the match was pretty technical, pretty solid, and it ended with Reka, winning with the Coconut Crusher, which is kind of like an Iron Claw meets an STO. So she just grabs you by the face, kicks out an ankle, and slams you straight on the ground. Love the finisher. And she executes it beautifully. Now the question is, where do we go from here? Is this the end of the feud? Is that the cap off? Is it over? Or are we, like I said, are we going to level this up? Are we going to go Heather Monroe comes back, maybe with her buddy Halston Body or somebody of that nature, and they get into a 2-on-1 situation, or maybe a cage match, or a tables match, or something? Or is this is it squashed? I seriously doubt it's squashed. I know we're going to hear something about this next week. And that was the cap. That was the end of the show. So overall, definitely worth the hour of my time. And that's all that was. I want you to think about that. And this is my final thought of the day, because I did the 11 hours promo many months ago about how you spend 11 hours watching WWE programming each week, and most of it's not enjoyable. And you never get 4 matches in an hour with WWE programming. That just does not fucking happen. There's too much bullshit in between. This was bang, 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 we got 4 matches. That's great. 4 matches in an hour. I normally only expect 3 out of a good promotion. WWE, I end up getting 2, which is one of my dissatisfying things with them. But anyway, to close it off, look for my DCW review this week of its show, and I will probably do a small opinions video somewhere else in the week. So, just be aware, like, share, subscribe, check me out on Twitter at Max@the_Indie_Anchor, and I will see you next week for episode 11 of Championship Wrestling from Atlanta.